Boruto could become a temporal master not by just looking forward in time, but also by stopping it on demand through the broken jutsu of Momoshiki, as the vessel has started acting more like the host ever since the merger deal from chapter 25. There is one thing that no one is talking about, and that is the abilities of Momoshiki that Boruto is going to inherit, specifically the one that deals with stopping time and looking forward in future. He might not even require Kashin Koji anymore after unlocking his own future sight, which may be one of the main reasons for Konoha's destruction. Well, more on that later, but the question remains, are both of these abilities actually usable by Boruto, or were they just a plot gimmick to keep Momoshiki relevant in part 1? Well, that's what we are about to find out, so make sure to like and hype the video and let's begin. Boruto has been positioned in such a way in the story where he is bound to obtain at least one of these two broken abilities at some point, and as we get further in the video, you will naturally find out which one it's going to be. Speaking of the time stop ability, it first occurred when Momoshiki made his return as a spirit to give Boruto the karma. He demonstrated a mysterious time freeze ability during his final moments, as after Boruto defeated Momoshiki with Naruto's help, the Otsutsuki spirit briefly lingered in the world, and in that instant, time seemingly stood still for everyone except these two. This allowed Momoshiki to speak privately with Boruto while everyone around them was frozen in place. Spirit made contact with Boruto, causing his perception of time to halt while they had their interaction. In other words, Boruto experienced a literal time stop phenomenon whenever Momoshiki chose to communicate with him, and this was the first ever instance. Not even Naruto or Sasuke could move during this interval, and later we got to know that Sasuke, thanks to his Rinnegan, could actually see the event live, but he also noted the sensation as if time had stopped flowing. We later saw Momoshiki using this ability in chapter 65 when Boruto was going through a heart attack, pushing the Otsutsuki to appear out of nowhere after stopping time, where some floaty things appeared to add an impact to the phenomenon. Interestingly, the manga showed us the state of all the characters who were present in the moment, and all of them appeared motionless and still. Momoshiki identified the threat of Code and decides to kill him, but the twist is that he did it after taking control of Boruto's body, which completely stopped the time stoppage phenomenon. So even though he had a chance to leverage this ability in killing his opponent, he just chose not to do it. He only activated the power to deliver some message to Boruto. So why does an Otsutsuki capable of stopping time wouldn't use it in battle? Could it be because it only worked in spiritual form or under specific conditions? For instance, after the death of Momoshiki, or whenever he chose to appear before Boruto using the spiritual plane of the Karma Seal. In a nutshell, the time stop was presented as a narrative device for Momoshiki's prophecy scene instead of a combat technique that he could throw around at will. So was it just a one-off plot gimmick to make Momoshiki's warning dramatic, or is it a real ability that Boruto could eventually use? Well, after chapter 65, there were not one but 3 instances where Momoshiki appeared to have a talk with Boruto after stopping time. And I'm telling you, if this ability is anything beyond a hallucination, then the secret to its true capability is hidden within a sharp detail of the following encounters. Chapter 67, 72 and 78 showed us Momoshiki appearing before Boruto for different reasons. First, it was to tell him about his evolution into an Otsutsuki and how he played a role in preventing his death. Second, it was the time when Boruto went out to the Hokage's office, when Momoshiki suddenly appeared to tell him that he won't be coming back this time. He even started to haunt him about a future where he would completely take over, leaving the vessel to silently suffer in a corner of his psyche. Finally, a brief appearance took place in chapter 78, where he informed Boruto that he's about to lose everything in no time. Here he was referring to omnipotence, but what's really interesting about these encounters is that unlike before, Boruto could freely move his body this time, and that might be because of his evolution into a pure Otsutsuki being. So hypothetically speaking, if the ability had to become a combative power, then Boruto could theoretically use it to stop the time of every person who isn't an Otsutsuki. It would help in preventing unnecessary interference in the Kawaki battle, in case there are some shinobis left who could interrupt the battle, which could turn out totally fatal. Well, the prologue sequence doesn't hint at Boruto using this ability, but since Kawaki is an Otsutsuki, he could definitely pull this card to ensure the safety of the people who are alive in the village at this moment. It would be like causing their time time to stop on an individual level, making it efficient for him to defeat Kawaki before the things take an even dirty turn. Also, if you look at their battle from the prologue, Boruto activates his Karma mid-battle, meaning if you would have to stop the time, then it would only happen after this instance. And there is a really good reason other than protecting the lives of the leftover people, which could push him to use the time stoppage power. But before I explain that, let's talk about the other signature ability of Momoshiki that Boruto could potentially access with the Karma Seed. During that frozen time encounter, Momoshiki gave Boruto a chilling prophecy about his future. He warned him that those blue eyes will one day take everything away from you. This cryptic warning indicated that Boruto's fate was sealed. At some point, Boruto would lose all that he holds dear in connection with his blue eyes. While many people connect this to Aida's blue eyes, I have a different opinion on what this actually meant. If it was actually the blue eyes of Aida which would have took everything away from him, then Momoshiki shouldn't have a second thought about her charm ability in the beginning, which he couldn't identify as the omnipotence. I believe the blue eyes was actually a metaphor to him being the child of Naruto, who also has the same eyes, and it was the burden of carrying his genes, which pushed Kawaki to wish for him becoming an outsider, which is exactly how he lost everything. In simple words, the village wouldn't have killed the son of the Hokage, even though he was the vessel of a merciless monster. So in order to change that, Aida's omnipotence made him switch places with Kawaki, which is how he lost everything. Well, Momoshiki's knowledge of Boruto's future wasn't just a lucky guess. It was implied to be the result of Momoshiki's own future sight ability. In fact, Momoshiki possesses a personal power to glimpse fragments of the future, including the destinies of others around him. What's interesting about this power is that the authors have quoted it as one of Momoshiki's unique ability, which allows him to see fragments of future surrounding himself. While it is similar to prescience, but in actuality, it's a lower level ability. So while this power not being a Shinjitsu is pretty mischievous, maybe there are tiers to the divine arts, and before you finally evolve an ability into its final stage, an Osatsuki might usually start with a low tier power, which doesn't naturally fit the criteria of a Shinjitsu. So in chapter 75 of part 1, Momoshiki activated this ability through the Byakugan in Boruto to give him a glimpse of tomorrow, where omnipotence was supposed to snatch everything from him. This makes it clear that Momoshiki can for a fact trigger the future visions of Boruto, making him have a glimpse of future. And looking at how the dynamics between Kashin Koji and Boruto are shifting drastically, there is a good amount of chance for Boruto to use this power at his own to prevent the plans of Koji from coming true. So what exactly did Kashin Koji scheme which would push Boruto to rely on his own future sight instead of his prescience? Well, this dates back to the time when the Sand and the Leaf shinobi fought the Shinju. Kashin Koji had originally planned both Hyodo and Konohamaru to die in the conquest, but after Boruto realized what he is doing, he quickly interfered to rescue Konohamaru, which persuaded Jura to appear out of nowhere, posing a huge threat on Boruto's life and the future of the world. The chapter 27 gave us another reason to expect Boruto using his own future sight in the story. Kashin Koji recruited Inojin to connect with Konoha, then asked him to master an ability that he was supposed to unlock in the future. The crazy part is that he was originally meant to unlock this power after the death of Himawari, but now that they turned around the events in their favor, Himawari's death will no longer happen since Mamushi will be handled before he goes too far. Now here is what I think may have pushed Boruto to rely on Momoshiki's future sight over Koji's. The cyborg didn't come up with the plan of recruiting Inojin out of nowhere. He only did it after realizing how much the lives of some people matter to Boruto. In case of any of his close ones would die, he wouldn't be able to operate normally, so in order to prevent what happened last time, when Boruto suddenly jumped in the scene to save Konohamaru, Koji already found a way to minimize vital deaths in the upcoming battle. But this was only after Boruto disobeyed his plans during the Sand Village battle. In case he wouldn't have shown such a concern for Konohamaru, maybe Koji wouldn't have crafted a plan to protect Himawari. We haven't seen him talk about her Nine-Tails power or some way to make her useful against the enemies. So I think if Boruto wasn't involved, maybe Koji would have somehow killed Himawari before Jura could devour her. And keeping all these factors in mind, it's too risky to fully trust him after realizing he knows exactly how everyone would die, but to manifest his own future, he wouldn't let out anything that would interrupt the timeline. So assuming Boruto ends up using the power of Momoshiki's future sight, he could then cross-check the plans of Kashin Koji just to see if he's preparing some sacrifice choice without letting him know. In this way, he could change the future and save the life of the person who was supposed to die by the plans of Koji. And even though the personal ability of Momoshiki doesn't operate like prescience, it can still show us one linear trajectory of time that the user could change by his own actions. Similar to how this panel of Kawaki that Boruto saw with his ability didn't actually appear in the manga. So while Boruto has a really great chance to inherit the future sight power, we shouldn't forget that him unlocking this technique could lead to the worst possible future, which is the destruction of the Leaf Village. Well, I have a solid explanation for that, and it has something to do with the flaw and faults of Momoshiki's future sight. While prescience allows one to see multiple futures, the foresight of Momoshiki only shows one linear track to the user, meaning if the future changes, the user would not be able to catch that, and that's why Momoshiki couldn't account for the survival of Boruto back then. So here is what I think could happen. When Boruto would use his own future sight to tackle the prescience of Kashin Koji, he would unknowingly lead to more newer futures, which wouldn't be that desirable at all. We know Boruto is a singularity of fate, and any major change in the timeline is directly correlated to his actions. So when you look at how the village has been completely destroyed in the future, on top of that, he even says, I guess this was the only possible outcome, cause his actions may have led to something which completely annihilated the possibility of other futures from taking place. So it's almost clear by now. Boruto will use his own future sight to go against the plans of Kashin Koji, but little does he know that this decision would erase the possibility of every other future from taking place, and ultimately he will face Kawaki on the Hokage mountain. So it's Boruto himself who manifested this calamity by deciding to separate his ways from Koji. Let me know what you think of this theory, and let's move on to the second reason for Boruto to use the time stop power. So as you can see, he said to Kawaki that it was the only possible outcome. But what if the future can still change, and this battle is just a race against time to find out who would have the key to changing it? In other words, since Boruto is fighting Kawaki with hope, it seems like there is still a chance for him to somehow turn around the events. And if that thing is somewhat restricted to time, then he could simply use the time stop power of Momoshiki to defeat Kawaki in order to fix everything before the deadline. Let me know what you think about these theories in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stuff. I will see you next time.